And for more details, we're very delighted to be joined over the phone with Dr. Monica Williams, the international relations expert. Good afternoon, Dr. Monica.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
It's a real pleasure to have you on Cairo local time. Why do you think is Egypt's support for the Gulf Arab and Gulf nations important at this particular time, especially with the latest happenings in the region?
I can't hear you. Can you repeat?
Let me repeat my question
please?
once more. Okay. Egypt is continuing to support the Gulf countries at the latest happenings, sad events that are taking place and the bombardment of very vital places inside the Gulf countries. Why do you think it's dire and it's important that Egypt is highly appreciated to be supporting the Gulf countries?
Yes. Egypt's position in supporting Gulf countries amid escalation in the Iranian attacks reflects a consistent strategic doctrine that views that Gulf countries and Gulf security is part of broader Arab national security and, of course, Egyptian national security. Egypt's response, of course, rooted in long-standing understanding that instability in the Gulf directly affects regional balance, global energy markets, and Egypt's own economic and security interests in this. And from its political and strategic perspective, we can read the President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi visits to Bahrain and Saudi Arabia today and to Emirates yesterday. Egypt adopted a clear stance, emphasized solidarity with Gulf states in the face of Iranian escalation, and this support is expressed through diplomatic engagement with the visit of the foreign ministry, foreign affairs, of course, and the high-level communications and coordination with regional partners to reinforce a unified front. By doing this, Egypt seeks to deter further escalation while avoiding direct military intervention, of course, and maintaining its role as a stabilizing actor in this regard between Iran and Gulf countries and the U.S., of course. At the same time, Egypt's approach reflects a careful balance between deterrence and escalation. It condemns attacks that target Gulf countries and energy infrastructure and civilian facilities.
Right. How is the exact damage? What was the exact damage that was inflicted over those Arab countries and the Gulf nations besides the American bases inside their countries? What type of damage?
It damaged the concept of the region or the security from the United States to the Gulf countries. And if we can show that Iran extends beyond political support to include its function as a regional mediator. So we have to revisit the meaning security for the Gulf countries from, of course, the United States perspective.
It's very obvious that Egypt is keeping track and still maintaining a very excellent, smart foreign policy and soft diplomacy and keeping a distance from all confrontations. At the same time, stretching its hands to protect and help and support its brotherly countries. But the fact that there are American bases inside the Gulf states, do you think that it was enough reason for those attacks, or it could have happened anyway?
I can't repeat. Also, I can't hear your question very well, but if I can tackle with this question as I hear it or as I realize it, there is a lot of escalation regarding the region and the central importance, of course. And there is a lot of escalation beyond and gradual shift in the nature of the conflict itself. It's remote management and conflict towards readiness to impose direct realities on the ground. from, of course, the United States, and it's very important. There is a lot of preparation which understood as part of broader strategy of layered different approach to influence Iranian calculation, but also to resist the behavior of both allies and doubles, and give the action of ground intervention on the table to enhance the credibility of U.S. threats, and it's of course compel Iran to realize the cost of continuous escalation.
Right, of course. In light of what's happening and what have happened, what could be happening, do you think that might be an alarm or a red flag for the countries in the region to take heed to what President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi have earlier called for by forming a unified coalition, Arab coalition, to stand up to potential threats that could threaten the whole region?
There is a lot of scenarios in this regard. The producers of the conflict, of course, have a very indirect impact and consequences in this regard. And of course, we have to tackle with the consequence. And President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi talked that Egypt tried to adapt economic measures and very, of course, serve and secure the security and the relationship between the Gulf countries and the United States. As we say, the Egyptian role is very important, and financial inclusion also reshape market expectations in this regard. And Egypt, of course, the two sides, of course, which have managing major crises, which rely not on tools, requires parallel diplomatic track that help reduce tensions and open the door for gradual solutions.
Okay, so you are an international relations expert and an economic expert also at the same time. In light of what has happened to most of the Gulf, the GCC countries and some Arab countries in the region, where is that taking their foreign policy, future foreign policy, and their future investment partnerships in the near future? Do you think this is going to cause some reconsideration in their future foreign policy and future investment partnerships?
Of course, the economic impact and is very crucial. Dimension is equally critical. Iran attack on Gulf energy infrastructure and the threat to maritime routes, particularly in strategic waterways, pose significant threats to global oil supplies and the trade flows. As we follow the last week, there is a lot of rise in the oil market prices, and for Egypt, such disruption can translate into higher energy prices and increased import costs, and it's very important. So supporting Gulf countries is also means safeguard the global market stability and protect the Gulf countries and the region economic resilience. So it's very important. As mentioned, there is a lot of doctrine that view Gulf security as part of broader Arab security.
Well, that's very good, Dr. Monica, that you raised this point, the Hormuz Strait and the waterways and the maritime navigation and all that. But to our knowledge, that Hormuz Strait, if it is blocked or temporarily closed, that is affecting most of Asia, generally speaking. But then what is within the Gulf region and the Arab countries and Egypt in that case? There are other exits. There could be other exits through the Suez Canal channel, probably canal, or you could further explain when it comes to maritime navigation and, of course, investment and, commercial, activities.
Of course, there is a lot of, it's very difficult to see for alternative or the potential disruption of the Strait of Hormuz represents one of the most important or critical escalation scenario, and it's happened now. And if we follow up or tackle with the strategic maritime checkpoint, which very has impact in the share of world oil and liquefied natural gas flows. From an energy perspective, even limited disruption triggers sharp price volatility. It's reached almost $120 per mil, so it's very important. And oil markets sensitive to geopolitical risks and the perception of instability in Hormuz can drive prices worse. So it's very important to imagine while alternative routes and strategic reserves exist, as you mentioned, they are unlikely to fully compensate for a prolonged block lapse, particularly given the scale of Gulf exports. And the economic implication would be equally strategic costs for the oil stakeholder, for Europe, for Gulf countries, and for Egypt, and for Iran itself, and for United States. And raising energy security translates directly into higher transportation and production costs worldwide.
Dr. Monica, in light of what's happening, or considering what's happening, probably the Gulf Arab leaders are preparing new plans and new types of political and economic business vision for the coming future. On top of them is their huge investment in the United States and then over there, and all the investment opportunities that they're giving to those countries. So do you think there could be some reconsideration or studying to make a shift to probably invest and have business partnerships inside the region, inside Egypt? More, of course, Egypt have a lot of Gulf investment inside it, but within what happened, do you think there could be some change of plans, of investment plans, so that they could save themselves the time, the hassle, the money that is wasted, the dangers, the losses, you name it?
The situation presents a paradox. Higher oil prices and, of course, the conflict influence investment relations between Gulf countries and the United States. Gulf sovereign wealth funds, which are major investors in U.S. markets, adjust their strategies in response to geopolitical development, as we see, I guess, the week before, which are major investors and shift towards safer assets or diversified geopolitically. Similarly, American investment in the Gulf, particularly in infrastructure and energy technology, could be affected by security concerns and regional risk assessment. So the situation very difficult and very paradox, and Gulf countries potentially boosting government spending and liquidity. However, the benefit is often offset by increased security costs, capital outflows, and the long-term risks of economic diversification, which play being disrupted, and countries like Saudi Arabia and UAE, which are actively pursuing economic transportation agenda, may face challenges in maintaining the investment momentum under the prolonged instability or the targets by the Iranian attacks.
Right, at the end of the day, it's totally understood, of course. Thank you so much, Dr. Monica William, the international relations expert. I'll be right back after the short break, so stay with us.